Prime Minister Netanyahu wants. He clearly doesn't want to achieve any negotiated settlement here. It will drive. Actually, before I say that, Chris, put the full screen up. This is the other right-wing member of the cabinet, Bezalel Smotrich, who's the Minister of Finance, basically saying a ceasefire is effectively a surrender deal. These two have been threatening to leave the coalition, and Netanyahu, in compliance with those threats, every time there's a deal on the table that Hamas agrees to what Israel and the U.S. have also put on the table, Israel raises the ante. Even the New York Times acknowledged this much on the front page yesterday. What does Netanyahu want, Colonel?
Well, we know what he doesn't want. He doesn't want peace. And I think Ambassador Freeman was talking to you recently and made the point that if you're interested in peace, you don't assassinate the leader of the negotiating team that sits across the table from you. And at every time someone emerges with whom some sort of deal can be reached, they end up dead. So I think Ambassador Freeman is right. One thing he doesn't want is peace. He wants the war. I think there's something else here that was revealed in another statement that Mr. Netanyahu made, where he said that Iran should understand that if they attack us, our counterstrike against them, and it's this, chicken and egg issue, who did what to whom first. Nobody bothers to point out that the Iranians are counterstriking. No, they're attacking out of the blue, and we will all punish them for doing so. But he is effectively telling the Iranians, if I were sitting in your shoes, I would use everything I have, because you have no incentive whatsoever to hold back, because you will never, ever have peace with us. I mean, that's really his message. And again, where do we fit into all of this?
Right, but that was my next question. He is thumbing his nose at the United States and all of the assets that we have given him, and all of the human assets, from the director of the CIA down to Amos Hochstein and all the functionaries in between, or who think they're negotiating, unless they're not naive, they think they're negotiating for peace.
Yeah,
I mean, Netanyahu thumbs his nose at them while he enjoys the adulation, Professor Sachs calls it rapturous adulation, of the United States Congress.
Well, I think we may want to bring Tom Cruise out of hiding and send him over on Mission Impossible this time and see whether or not he can make something work. Because I really think it is Mission Impossible. I really do think that Netanyahu and his close confidants, and I think the majority of the Israeli population, have all concluded that this showdown must happen. It's do or die. And again, he has complete control of the Biden administration. Most laughable thing that you can read at this point in the press is the notion that the Biden administration is deeply unhappy with Mr. Netanyahu. Well, if there's evidence for unhappiness, I haven't seen it. On the contrary, he seems to get more and more and more of everything he can get. What we are missing is the rest of the world. And we're missing the assistance that's coming in from Russia, which is substantial. And I also think we're missing China's interest in this thing. They're sending some naval forces into the region, and they have made it very clear that anything that jeopardizes Iran's sovereignty and effectively survival of the Iranian state, that's something they will not accept. So we're looking at a much larger war already. And again, up until this point, we've been dealing with Erdogan the blowhard. But now there's a lot of evidence on the ground in Turkey that the Turks are seriously working to get ready for what they think will be a role that they'll have to play in this wider war. I can't conceive of anything worse for American national strategic interest than this outcome. And I also really question what happens to Israel. I mean, we know that the economy is in ruins. We know that they are living inside a fortress with very little hope for escaping out of it forever. How does this help them? How do they come out of this alive and well? I think they have fabricated this fantasy that the entire world will be at their feet and their enemies will be piled high in mountains of dead corpses. I'm not sure that's the outcome they're going to get.
What is your view of the probability, the likelihood of significant military action from Iran to Israel?
Well, as I just told you, if they're listening carefully to Mr. Netanyahu and they're watching the massive American military buildup, at least at sea and at various air bases in the region, why would they hold back? I can't conceive of any reason to exercise any more restraint, because they have to understand that this is not going to be the last time, that they're going to be dragged into this situation repeatedly by us and Israel over and over and over again. So they have to answer the question, what are they going to do about it? Can they live through this if they, quote unquote, exercise restraint? They did that the last time. And then there was hope that there would be negotiated settlements. And you've got people like Burns and others rushing into the region, trying to do whatever they possibly can. None of it has made any difference because Mr. Netanyahu is in charge. He does not want a settlement. The only settlement he's interested in is to turn as much of the region into a cemetery as he can, filled with the bodies of dead Muslims and Christians and anybody else who objects to what he wants to do.
Doesn't the American State Department and sort of the foreign policy elites, don't they understand that?
You're asking me something I can't answer because I haven't talked to all of them, but you have to look at who's in charge. Who are the people in these appointed positions? Where do their loyalties lie? What do they think is most important? And again, you have another problem. This is the persistent problem we face in the United States. People think that war is something that happens on someone else's soil. We've lost our fear of war, Judge. We don't think it will visit us. And then the second part of that, which is equally important, is that Americans are focused here. They're focused on the southern border. They're focused on this massive influx of aliens into the country. They're watching as the administration tries to rapidly transform the migrants into citizens. We're conferring citizenship left and right on all sorts of people, when normally that takes many years to achieve. Just ask any of the people that have come here legally how hard it was for them to finally acquire citizenship. This is all around a disaster for us at home, and it's a disaster overseas. But the disaster here at home is more tangible. It's more real. They can reach out and touch it. Whereas what's happening over in the Middle East is something they think is going to stay in the Middle East. It won't.
Colonel McGregor, thank you very much for your time, my dear friend. These are